Rory, you want me to let everyone in? Or are you waiting for something?
Please.
You got it.
My friends, I was just thinking maybe you'd canceled the meeting because everybody was still in mourning.
No. Kathy, you missed it. Last week I had a Halloween costume. I was Bobby from Brampton.
No way.
Yeah, I changed my name on Zoom and everything.
Damn. I'm so sorry I missed that.
Yeah, I was telling everyone to get their abstracts in and everything.
Oh, man. Wow. Well, I am sorry I missed it. I guess I came in a few minutes late last week.
True story, though. Hi, everyone.
Hi, Rory.
Nice to see you all.
Hello.
You look shocked.
No, well, aren't we all shocked? Or not shocked? I don't know. Nothing to mourn yet, I guess, but waiting.
No,
here.
fair enough. I can't believe the number of times I've looked at the New York Times stuff related to the election today. Like, can there please be a decision?
It's like serious doom scrolling.
Yeah.
I'm having a hard time.
A lot.
Kathy, when you said that at the beginning of the call, I was like, what? Is there an answer? And I like Googled really quick. Even made me panic.
No, well, because I was on and I was waiting, and I thought, well, they canceled a bunch of the other meetings this week because of the election. So I thought, did I miss the memo and they canceled this one too? So that everybody could recover or not?
Nope, this is therapy, Kathy. This is the opposite of stress.
Meeting.
Kathy, we would never cancel an RTO conversation. Are you kidding me?
Way to go, Gina. Exciting. Oh, by the way, no pressure, Bobby, but I just had my performance evaluation with the Chief Administrative Officer of the City of Brampton. And I may have mentioned that I was the Canadian ambassador for the Haas model. So if you're getting a call, please say yes.
Yeah, that's the last time I have 2 Trulies on a Friday with you. I keep giving you all these fake titles all the time, Kathy. Hey, good afternoon, everyone. Rory, did you want to kick us off? You want me to kick us off? It's up to you, brother.
Yeah, you go ahead and kick us off. I'm just so excited to see you all, and we have some really amazing people on the call today. So thanks for being here.
Yeah, we have a jam-packed crowd, almost 40 people already, which is super exciting. Thank you all for being here. For those of you who don't know me, my name is Bobby Mann. I'm the Maddie's Human Animal Support Services Pilot Director. Happy to be a part of these amazing summits weekly that are hosted thanks to Maddie's. And really our topic today is return to owner. So we're really excited to be having Gina Knepp helping really lead this conversation. One of my personal heroes and friends. We've been doing some really fun work in the Lost and Found Working Group for the Haas Project. But really our goal today, one, is we have some awesome people that are also part of that working group joining us today. They will introduce themselves and talk a little bit about the work that they do. But we really want to create some space for you all to talk about your obstacles and what you're dealing with in terms of RTO and how we can help support you. And we will actually be returning back next week to provide you with a lot of solutions to those problems. So I'm going to kick it over to you, Gina, and if you want to introduce any of your other friends that are on the call and let you kick off the presentation.
Hey everybody, I'm Gina Knepp. I think all you probably know me by now and are sick of hearing about RTO, but too bad. You're a captive audience today and we're back together. I'm super jazzed. I'm with the Michelson Found Animals Foundation. I think you know that. And I see my comrades from Michelson on the call. Miriam and Caroline and Matt, wave. Where my Michelson crew is here. I don't know if there's anybody on the next page. So if any of you have questions about the Found Animals Registry, we're not here to sell chips, but we do have a lot of information and knowledge about returning animals to their owners. So take advantage of the brain trust that's here with us today. Is Leslie on the call? Leslie Poole, are you here? There you are. We have Leslie Poole with Pet FBI, which means found by internet. I never knew that until I met Leslie. And our other guest is Cheyenne Shull with Washoe County, the Reno, Nevada area, another amazing RTO dynamo. And Bobby, do you have a specific order? Because naturally I have a couple of slides to make people think about things.
Well, since you are actually, I guess, you a self-proclaimed Pope of RTO, I think you said that on a Monday call. I think you should kick it off.
I think I had too much coffee that day, and I did liken myself. If RTO is a religion, then I'm the Pope. And somebody actually did a meme about it, and don't you dare put it up, Bobby. It was terrible. And my face is distorted, when you're frozen in time. Yeah, not funny. Not funny at all. So what I want to do is get you thinking about RTO perhaps in a different way. I'm going to stop my video so that I don't freeze in time and Bobby doesn't make fun of me. It happens all the time. And this is more, and some of you may have seen some of this, but I don't know that all of you have. I don't think so. I like to call it rhetorical gymnastics, where we start thinking about, now you're looking at my screen, aren't you? There we go. Start thinking about RTO in a different way, pondering it or musing over it. As you all know, I think it's kind of like the most important thing that we can be doing to increase life saving. So I like to say, what if, and I've brought this up and it's starting to gain traction. What if we called RTO something else? What if, sometimes a slight shift in thinking can transform the way we do things. I mean, imagine if the culture of our organizations, all of our organizations, no exclusions, we're truly committed to RTO being like the #1 priority and getting every lost animal back home where they belonged. What if we rebranded it completely and we changed it? Last week, I think I called it Return to Family. And since then it's morphed in Return to Home. Maybe there's a better name. Maybe it's Return to Community. But start thinking about that in your respective organizations. There's nothing stopping us from rebranding something. And once you rebrand, just the tiniest little way, I used Front Street as an example because that wasn't the name of the shelter where we worked, but we decided to call it something else and we became something else as a result. And whether I don't know if we change the name of RTO to something else or not. I mean, think about how it's branded at your respective organizations. I always ask people, do you know what your RTO rates are? Is it something that your organization measures? Does the person who was responsible for feeding and cleaning the kennels every day, do they know that's the priority? Is something that you measure your organization's success against? I think, how much of our budgets are devoted to return to owner? And I would wager to say probably nothing. So bear with me and put it in the chat. When you see this dog, what's this dog's story? What do you think of? Bobby, monitor the chat for me, would you? Dog comes in as a stray, emaciated, looks young. What's the story? What's the first thing that pops into your head? Bobby, I can't see the chat. Is anybody participating or am I talking to myself?
No, you're a good, Pope. You got long lost dog, neglected, lost, skittish, runaway, neglected, runaway, lost his person.
Nice. I have to admit that I wasn't always the most virtuous person when it came to judging people in animal welfare, particularly in the beginning. And I know that my mind goes straight to, oh my God, bad owners. Whether this dog was neglected, not fed, sick, what have you. I personally go straight to really bad people, which isn't the case at all. This dog ended up having a corn cob and had an intestinal block. We raised a lot of money for him. He never was reunited with his owners, but he did get into a new home. He's thriving and his name is Cobb. So I like to use him as an example because the staff, and myself included, immediately go to something bad. People are bad. And that's not the case. This was clearly a medical situation. And it's very possible that the owners found themselves in a bad spot and he came in as a stray when he should have really been an owner surrender. But we have to start thinking instead, firstly, where's the owner? So look at these 3 dogs, right? imagine these 3 dogs enter your shelter. Now don't answer out loud, okay? But we're just imagining our internal conversations right now. I know that when I was running the shelter, before I, had my epiphany and became the Pope of RTO, I would have thought, oh my God, transfer partners are gonna love that poodle. Call Pug Rescue. For sure they're gonna want him because he's only 2, right? And get the waiting list out for that golden. Goldens are so easy to place. I have a perfect adopter. How many times have we made a dog unavailable in our systems? And don't answer this one, it's rhetorical. As soon as the stray hold period clock ticked on that very last minute, because we were focused on whether it was a high, an easy adoption, a transfer, a rescue. How often did we immediately go to, oh my God, we've got to get this pet back home? So it's kind of exploring your own personal narrative. And I think these are conversations we can be having with our staff as animals come into our shelters. Then I think about these 2, what's our narrative with these 2? A brown pit bull, brown and white pit bull, got a collar on, no tag. It's going to sit in our kennels forever, hard to place, probably doesn't like other dogs. Then we've got the Chihuahua, the decrepit, blind, old Chihuahua, tongue hanging out. How many of those have we seen? None of us, I don't think, immediately think, oh my gosh, this animal is loved, it has a family. How do we get these animals back to their people? And it's, it's kind of our ugly truth. I admit I have not been virtuous the entire time in animal welfare, but I put this out here so that we can start thinking and being a little bit introspective about our views of animals as they enter our system. And how do we shift that culture to being more, how do we get this animal back home above all else? So that's my starting thoughts for this conversation. And I'm back. Oh, there was a lot of comments in the chat, huh? I want the Chihuahua. Rory, you can have him. We've all seen that Chihuahua. But how do we it's kind of like transforming our brains to thinking a different way. And I think that's, and the people on this call are all like-minded, I think, in that view. But how do we change the entire country in our approach to RTO? So I have invited Leslie Poole, who I haven't met in person yet, who I have met virtually and spend time working with on the Lost and Found working group. And I invited Leslie because I did not know a lot about Pet FBI before I became a virtual person. And Leslie, please tell everybody about Pet FBI, the history, who you partner with, and what it can mean for shelters as far as utilizing your service.
Great. Yeah, thanks, Gina. I am thrilled to be here to talk to you for a few minutes about Pet FBI. As Gina mentioned, that stands for Pets Found by Internet. We're not the actual Pet FBI, although we do get a lot of emails thinking that we are. But we are a nonprofit organization, a lost pet recovery service. So we were actually founded in 1998. So we've been around for 22 years now. And when we started out, we were based in our home state of Ohio, and we just served our local area. But we kept expanding, and currently we serve the United States, the entire United States and Canada. So our website is petfbi.org, and anybody can go onto our website and post a lost or a found pet report for completely free. You can post a lost or found pet of any species. We mostly get dogs and cats, but we do get a fair amount of birds and tortoises and ferrets and other things. So you can put anything in there. If you go to our website and you click on the Search Lost and Found Reports button, you'll see our national database of lost and found pets, and it's easily searchable. You can filter by location, by date range, by species. There's even a place where you can put a text filter in if you really want to drill down to get some particular information. So a couple of the things we do in our program, we do send, in order to help people find their pets, we do send email alerts. So there are two different kinds of email alerts. Anybody can sign up to get our special agent email alerts if you want to get lost and found pets in your area. But the other thing that we do that's been really helpful and has helped us reunite a lot of pets is we send out a potential matching email alert to anybody with an active report in our system. So for instance, if you post a lost dog, you're going to receive all of the found dogs that have been posted in our database in your area. And those emails come out in real time. So if somebody finds your dog down the street and posts it, you're going to immediately get that email alert. So that's really helped facilitate a lot of reunions. And most of the reunions that we're doing are happening outside of the shelter system, which is great because it's conserving shelter resources. So the owner and the finder are able to connect directly, contact each other directly to arrange to get that pet back home. One of the things that we are super proud of is our collaborations with our other partners. So we actually work with other groups, lost pet recovery groups. We work with Helping Lost Pets, Lost Dogs of America, Lost Cats of America, and other volunteer groups. And so what happens is any report that goes into the Pet FBI database is then shared on those statewide Facebook pages. And so volunteers are managing those reports. So they're looking at them, they're checking to make sure that there are no errors, they're posting the reports, and then they're also able to reach out to those owners to give tips and to answer questions. One of the things that we train volunteers back to what you were saying, Gina, is no judgment. We are very careful. We never tell people that they probably won't find their pet. We also always offer encouragement. We never pass judgment on owners or finders. So it's just, we want that to be a judgment-free zone for anybody using our services. So we have we've gathered a lot of tips and suggestions and information for people that's on our website, and our partners have done the same. So for example, Lost Dogs of America has developed just a wealth of information to help people find their lost dog, and they train their volunteers to be able to pass that information along. So one of the things that we're really happy about is not only can we provide the technology to help people find their pets, but we also can provide that personal touch through collaborating with these other organizations. So, I mean, if anybody's ever had a lost pet, and I have, you know, that just horrible, horrible feeling of not being able to find your pet. And sometimes it actually paralyzes people. So being able to have an individual that will answer their questions and give them tips and maybe just help them facilitate that search process really can make a lot of difference. So I would invite you all to check out our website at petfbi.org. I will drop my email in the chat too if anybody ever has any other questions, or if you have questions now, I would be happy to answer them.
Thank you, Leslie. I really appreciate it. One of the things I've been advocating, you have a tool to make lost and found flyers that I think is rather good. I know that Chris put in the chat that he's added the link to your website on their Facebook page, which is, you know, just a great resource to give people. The more hope I think that we can give people, the more we'll be viewed as collaborative partners in the reunification process. So I'm a big fan. Anybody have any questions for Leslie? Anybody going to immediately add the FBI link on your website? All right, before we move on to our next guest, maybe we'll take a few minutes to talk about kind of obstacles and struggles with RTO. Maybe it's changing the culture in your organization. Maybe it's, you know, incorporating volunteers. I'd like to hear from our audience.
It's Kathy from Canada, not Bobby from Brampton. So we do a really great job here. I'm going to toot our own horn, or the horn of our team, from an RTO standpoint. However, we have a rescue group in the community who doesn't want to work with us and routinely recommends to people who post that they've found an animal not to take it to the shelter because we just kill things. And then it goes to the rescue group. And we've actually had an owner identify that they had his cat a day after it went missing, and we had to get the police involved. So we've tried everything to encourage them to call us and let us know. If you're going to hang on to the animal, that's fine, but like, let's file a found report so that people who phone the shelter looking for their pet, we can direct them to you. And they just are not interested, it seems, in participating that way. So I need you to wave your magic wand, Gina.
Have you had any face-to-face meetings with them? It's really hard to ignore people when you're sitting across the table from them.
So we did invite them to come to the shelter. One of their core group of volunteers came and spent 2.5 hours with us, where we did a tour and we talked about our philosophies. And this was a couple of years ago. And that person was on board and trying to make change within their rescue group. Going forward, we could never get the founder to come and talk to us. We couldn't even get her to talk to us on the telephone.
Do they post, do they have a way of posting the lost animals that they've taken into their rescue, or are they not doing that either?
I feel like, and maybe Stephanie knows more, she's on the call as well. They're not really posting that they've found animals. They're posting animals that they have for adoption through their rescue.
Yeah, they're not really giving people an opportunity to reclaim their pets. And the one that Kathy was referring to, we did have to get the police involved because they were just completely not even entertaining that this could be this man's cat.
Is there anything on your website, Kathy, that tells people if you're missing a pet, you might want to check with this group?
Nope. Okay.
Just, you know, it's just a thought. I mean, I had
enough.
had a similar experience in Sacramento, and it is super frustrating because basically they're essentially stealing someone's animal.
Yep.
Yeah, super sad, especially if it's cute, small, fluffy, huh?
Right.
Yeah.
That sounds like an interesting idea though, Gina. So I will explore that option.
Yeah. Anybody else on this call smarter than me that has some suggestions for Kathy on how she might solve this riddle?
I see something in the chat from Matt. Any common partners you share in the community, and would you be open to inviting them to shelter events? Yeah, we do have some common partners for sure, and we've tried not to invite them to shelter events. I would possibly be hung out to dry by the staff if I tried that. But I do like Gina's idea about adding some stuff to our website about, you know, check these places, including this group for if you've lost your pet.
Yeah. And you know, it's a great way to lift them up too, because you're advertising their organizations. They don't know that that's really not your intent, but right. Who cares, right?
Yeah.
I was just gonna say, this is Corinne from the MSPCA in Boston, and I'm sure we all have those groups with good intentions in our community, but who we worry are maybe swiping people's cats off the street. And so we have included them kind of historically in the loop of, like, when I reach out to the local animal control or the local shelter, when we have a stray, they're just on that email list. And that in turn, I think over time has led them to reciprocate that. You know, like, I don't always get as swift or maybe as like robust a response from them as I do from our local animal controls or shelters, but at least they feel like part of it, and then we're kind of keeping them in the loop and vice versa.
Yeah, that's a great idea too. Thanks, Corinne.
You know, something else just popped into my head, and it might not be manageable depending upon how many, you know, local rescue groups there are that are, you know, absconding with people's pets, but sending a daily email, there's ways to automate that, saying these are the lost animal reports that we've received. Please, you know, check your inventory, if you will, in case you may have taken in this animal. Another subtle way to encourage partnership.
There is a community Facebook group that posts all the lost pets, and this particular rescue is always on there, and a lot of people are recommending that they contact them directly. Our shelter has recently, in the last few months, started our own Lost and Found Facebook page, and we've got great volunteers that will share every post that we make. They share it onto that community Facebook page as well. So it's all cross-posted just by a few advocates that we actually do have on that group from our volunteers.
Nice. You know, and also too, if there's ever the opportunity, if one of these rescue groups actually does a successful reunification, offer to share their story on your social platforms. Bobby and I did this a lot in Sacramento to try and uplift a rescue group and even encourage donations to that organization. And we created some partnerships that we weren't expecting to create. But there's always more than one way to skin a cucumber. So you have to start thinking about tricky ways to make people believe. And most of the time we do believe, we do mean it, but develop stronger partnerships so that they want to work with us. Any other suggestions for Kathy?
No.
Thank you, everybody.
Sure. Augusta or in the chat, it says trying harder to find owners and even holding pets longer before adopting conflicts with best practices regarding length of stay. Any thoughts? Oh, that's a really good topic because we're all scrambling to reduce length of stay, right? I think that boils back to the before of RTO I like to talk about, and how hard are we marketing the message that pet identification is as critical as wearing your seatbelt. Anybody have any thoughts about that?
Yeah, I think to Chris's point in the chat too, this is why Finder to Foster can be so impactful, especially if we start thinking about especially as we start like gathering data about pets not wandering too far from where they come from. If we can keep pets sort of where they are, then does the length of stay matter as much? I think the length of stay practices that we're trying to sort of shorten are because stress in the shelter and space in the shelter. But if we turn that to foster, then maybe that becomes an opportunity and a longer period of time for pets to find their home. So I think like founder to foster programs are going to be a huge part of this.
Yeah. Is there anybody from Dallas on this call?
We do have Tom Kremer, who did all the data on this call from with Dallas.
I think the average length of stay for dogs in Dallas is pretty short, isn't it? I don't remember. It's under 10 days.
Then, yeah, it differed between outcomes, but yeah, under 10 days for most of them.
Tom, are you still in in England?
I am, yes.
So you're up late.
Right? Relatively
or is it
late.
Early?
No, it's 9:30. It's not bad.
Thank you for joining us. Tom has done some incredible research and configuration of data out of Dallas. I'm not going to share it, Tom, because I don't want to give away all your secrets, but it's really amazing. And if I recall correctly, what was the distance that the dogs that were found in Dallas neighborhoods from their home?
Yes, 70% of them were under 1 mile and 40% of them were under like a block from their owners' addresses.
Yeah, but I guess we'll be inviting you back, and then you'll get to be the special guest and share all the great work that you've done for us.
Yeah, I'll be happy to.
Okay, we really haven't solved the conflict between RTO or holding on to animals longer to find an owner and length of stay. Did anybody have any more comments on that? Rory, you brought up a really good point.
Gina, I was just going to say that, so you gave us like a truncated version of a longer presentation, but the whole before work, is important. So if you're putting in, a few extra minutes on the front end, knocking on doors as animal control or your field services folks, and then if you're not involved with that firsthand, you're sharing the information and the resources with the finder and asking them to do it. You're filtering the number of animals that are ever making it to the shelter. You're reducing that number significantly. And then Rory's point that, if the pathway is to get that animal either directly into the finder's home or into a foster home, then that's your response for the concerns about length of stay. It's not that we're disregarding it. We're reducing the animals coming into the shelter. So the ones that do come into the shelter are less stressed. And we're establishing pathways to ensure that they have a short length of stay or are sent into foster home as soon as possible while you're working on the return to owner, return to home return to community, whatever the strategy is.
Right. And do those of you that have animals in foster count the number of days in foster in with your traditional length of stay? Because I think there's a way, depending upon what software you use, to factor that out, because length of stay in foster is not nearly as costly as length of stay in shelter. And it would be interesting moving forward to look at those differences. So Chris says they separate them. Really progressive. Good for you.
If I can interject here, it's Erica in Tallahassee. I think one of the things that we run into is once we, and this is for dogs, of course, once we get a stray dog in, it's likely if we're going to find an owner, we're going to find an owner in the first, 24 hours, whether it's through a chip and we're trying to, figure that out, or posting online or whatever it is, we've sort of got it down to a science. So say you find the owner within the first 2 days, our stray hold is 6 days right now. And trying to get that owner in to reclaim the animal is what's delaying or making the length of stay longer. It's not necessarily finding the owner, it's getting them to the shelter, them having the initiative to even reclaim their animal. So that's sort of where the rub is, at least how I see it.
Yeah. Well, maybe I'm gonna ask Cheyenne to talk about the real progressive microchipping approach that you've taken in Washoe and what that's done to your community and the length of stay and the RTO rates, because it ties in really well.
Hi, everyone. Yep, Cheyenne here from Reno, Nevada. Thanks for having me. I have a very successful microchip program that we have been utilizing within our department since 2012. And it was sort of a pilot project that was presented to our board at that time to test it to see how the community would respond. And I'm happy to say that since 2012, our staff has microchipped 30,000 animals in our community. And the program is free to Washoe County residents. So anyone with a dog, cat, horse, goat, an animal we can safely microchip, bring it to our office and we will microchip it outside of COVID precautions. This year it's been a little challenging, but and so we've managed to increase our return to owner rate consistently above 40% since 2012. So we have a 10-year average of 44% return to owner rate on dogs and cats currently. But what we try to utilize is a two-pronged approach. And of course, one prong being returning animals prior to being impounded, and then what we do after if the animal is impounded and we're not able to reach an owner beforehand. And so getting the animals microchipped is our first strategy, and then keeping that information current is another strategy. And so every time an animal control officer picks up an animal, they all have computers in their vehicles, they all have scanners, and they scan every animal as long as it's able to be handled. And if it has a microchip, they attempt to contact the owner in the field prior to bringing it into the shelter. And so many of the animals are able to be returned in the field prior to impound as a result of that. Additionally to that, we take photographs of the animal as soon as the officer impounds it and puts it on their vehicle. And so the information in the photograph of that animal is live. It's updated onto our website. So anyone from home that's potentially looking for their animal can see what animals are in our care, even if they're not at the shelter yet. So if they're still on the truck, they can see that the animal's in our care and is safe, and they know where to come and get it. If the animal is not able to be returned in the field and it is either brought to us over the counter or brought to us by an officer, we immediately start the process of trying to locate the owner. So if it has a microchip, a license, an ID color, whatever form of identification, sometimes our staff are able to recognize repeat offenders. We start calling and contacting the potential owners of those animals. And of course, I've already mentioned that we put photographs of every animal that's in our care on our website. And we're sending letters if we have contact information to pet owners. And in Nevada, we have a 5-day stray hold, so we don't have a lot of time. But we are definitely on the ball trying to get in touch with those pet owners right away to ensure that we're doing everything we can to reunite their pet with them. And additionally to that, I want to make a point that our microchip program is free to Washoe County residents. It comes with a lifetime registry, so they don't have to do anything. And I know that's a big problem with a lot of animals that get adopted from other shelters. not ours, that they don't ever register the chip. And so when the animal gets picked up, the information is essentially useless because there was no person attached to that animal. So we keep a local registry, which is our database, Chameleon. So anytime someone has an animal, even if they didn't get microchipped here, we upload their microchip information into our database, as well as the national registry. And then we also do routine public service type of announcements and educational things to help our community understand the importance of keeping their microchip information up to date and their phone numbers and all of that information current, because it's useless to us if it's not current. And I think that's pretty much the gist of our program. I don't really feel like it's rocket science, but it works for us, and we consider it a valuable resource for our community. And though the cost comes out of our general budget, and we don't have grants or anything specific to pay for the microchips, it does return a very valuable dividend to our shelter by preventing animals from coming into the shelter in the first place and reducing the length of stay that they're in our shelter.
Thank you so much, Cheyenne. I have a question for the group. So I know we're talking about what are we doing to be able to connect with owners, but I think the other component is what are we doing to support getting these pets back with their families from the financial side? Are a lot of you waiving fees for people that are having financial hardships? Are you allowed to waive fees, and do any of you have obstacles in being able to waive fees?
It's Kathy. We're in an interesting position, I guess. We have an awful lot of autonomy. Mostly nobody asks what we're doing unless somebody goes to council to complain about what we're doing, and waiving fees isn't going to be one of those things anybody complains about. So we have in the past and continue to routinely waive fees where we need to, with the premise that, you know, if they don't have the money today to get their pet back, they're not going to have it as the costs mount a few days from now. And what good is it doing us to have the pet in the building? On the flip side, you know, because we're a municipal government, we have a user fee bylaw that's corporate wide. And so our fee structure is laid out in that bylaw. And so it says that this is the fee that we should be charging people for boarding or whatever, if their animal's been impounded. But maybe because the right hand doesn't know what the left hand's doing, in our case, nobody really ever connects the dots on that and says, how many animals did you return to an owner and where's the money? So.
Did anybody track from the time that they actually did start waiving fees, or maybe your sort of annual promotions? I see oftentimes people will do a sort of an amnesty event during 4th of July or New Year's. Did anybody track their length of stay to see if there was a reduction in their length of stay? I know us at Sacramento, that's really one of the ways that we were able to articulate the purpose. I mean, I know it's always great to get pets back, but we were able to show that there was actually a cost savings by animals leaving faster versus how much we were actually collecting in reclaim fees. Does anybody track that data at all?
Not me.
Does anybody offer payment plans if you are prevented because of the type of government you work in from releasing an animal without payment, but setting up a payment plan with the owner? We did that in Sacramento too.
We do that as a sort of first approach. And then if it's obvious that there's just no way they're going to be able to manage it, we'll do things like, okay, well, how about just the license fee then? So you're going out without current license, or, okay, we'll create a debt and just let it go. So we sort of have a tiered approach to depending on the situation.
And I think it was you, Gina, who mentioned maybe having like a pay it forward fund. Is that right? Did you all, was that it at Front Street that you had that?
We didn't really call it pay it forward. We did, after every transaction at the front counter, ask if the person would want to round up or make a donation to help the next pet. We didn't have a specific fund line for RTO fees, but those monies could be used for that too. I mean, people have gotten really creative. What stresses me out is when I know that we still have shelters in the United States that won't release an animal unless the fees are fully paid, which means that animal might actually be destroyed. So I'm hopeful that in our future, redemption fees will be a thing of the past because they aren't serving us very well.
And our redemption fees, and forgive me if this is a naive or ignorant question, but are redemption fees really adding, like, are they really bringing money in when you aren't waiving them?
Actually, I think they cost more money.
Yeah, that's what I would imagine.
Yeah, and I would agree. It certainly is not a significant revenue generator for us. And, you know, I've always operated on the premise that, like all the other government services, I'm not necessarily in the business to make money from this.
Right, of course, but if the argument is coming from above that we need revenue streams, I just wonder if it even is a balanced revenue at the end of the day. It's not likely.
Nowhere near, no.
We should talk.
I'd like to add that we here in Cabot, Arkansas, have looked into doing this because we have scenarios where we take in a dog or a cat and the owner steps forward, but they can't afford to pay to get it out. So now if they don't claim it within a certain period of time, now it's failure to reclaim. So now they get a citation. Well, they can't pay that citation. They couldn't even pay the reclaim fee. So now that citation goes to court. They don't show up to court. Now they have a warrant out for their arrest, which means their license is revoked or suspended. And they may be in a position, a delivery driver or something like that. So now they lose their job. Well, we've got all of this happening and we still have their dog or cat. So it's got us nowhere. And all it's done is force somebody to lose their job. And again, we still have the animals. So we're trying to work around ways to fix this. But of course, we have ordinances and we have to follow the ordinances, and we can't make exceptions to those ordinances without changes through our city council. So we're trying to figure that out, because the revenue that it does generate is not much, because we can issue a ton of citations and fees, but collecting on that is extremely hard when you have people that, again, can't even pay the reclaim fee. And now you've taken that $50 fee, $150 citation, plus now court fees. Now their license is suspended. They don't have a job. Now they can't feed their children. So it just steamrolls into this huge thing, all because we couldn't collect $50 from them. So it's a mess.
My question, though, and I think of what you just said, Brandy, is do we really have to enforce all the ordinances? A police officer does not have to give me a speeding ticket. They have the authority to issue a warning. It's not black and white. And I think sometimes we paint ourselves into a corner thinking we have to enforce something when in actuality we don't. And it may be different in Arkansas. I don't know.
Well,
yeah,
at our facility, it's very much enforced. Mike Wheeler is an amazing director, but he is very much by the book. And while he is extremely compassionate, he's not always at the facility. So the employees are instructed, this is how we do things. So yeah, I understand, yes, it's definitely not always black and white, but it's trying to figure out that fine line, which is, again, something that Mike is working on through our city council, is removing the set in stone thing, so we can make the decision, well, if, you know, this is like the free ride home that we were talking about, you know, if your pet's properly microchipped and registered within our city as far as licensing, then we're gonna void those citations and fees, and we're gonna take your pet directly back home for no charge. So, but we have to get that ordinance written so that we are able to not necessarily pick and choose, but to make those decisions as to what is most important. Because we do have the people that, we have one dog right now at the shelter, continually at the shelter all the time. And the family doesn't even live in our city limits, but they live so close that their dog is always picked up. She's not sterilized. She is microchipped, but we all know her. Everybody in the city knows this dog, but it's just a continual issue. And that person is somebody that we definitely don't want to break the rules for, because we've tried to help them numerous times and it just doesn't get through to them. So
interesting. Bobby, are you keeping up with the chat? Because I'm not.
I'm just, after you, Rory.
No, please.
The question that I was going to ask is, I know that, we're talking about using our websites, using social media to try to get lost pets back home, identification. We actually just had a conversation in the marketing group about Nextdoor and how a lot of shelters have been successful using Nextdoor to get lost pets home. I would like to, just through the chat, how many of your organizations have access to use Nextdoor? And if you do, have you seen a lot of success in getting lost pets back home?
And my question goes back to, I just love how you started all of this, Gina, with kind of trying to break our own like biases about which animals have someone attached to them and how they come in. And I'm curious, within organizational culture, which part of the shelter are you all seeing the most sort of assumptions being made about animals not being attached to somebody? Is it in the clinic? Is it in intake? Is it officers? Like, I'm just curious, like, which division sort of has the most attachment to that?
I would wager that most of the animals entering shelters are coming in, at least pre-COVID, over the counter versus in an ACO truck. That's just been my experience. If anybody thinks it's, or feels it's different in your agencies, please speak up. I think it's the moment that animal walks in the door. It starts with whoever does the clerical processing, and it's a different classification, depending on the agency. But it starts from the moment the animal walks in and till he or she gets placed in a kennel. We start telling stories. That's how we rationalize, I think some of the bad feelings we have about this business. That's just my 2 cents. Anybody else have a thought on that?
And I'm curious if like storytelling, like flipping all these stories, if we just need to really start like some sort of bank of reclaimed animal stories, like that we can just really start messaging this as much as we've messaged adopt, don't shop, like there's someone that's attached to this animal.
It's such a good idea.
It's an excellent idea, and it's giving the liberty and permission to everybody in the organization to be able to tell a story. Because if someone's reclaiming an animal and they're at the front counter and the clerical person's processing, the redemption paperwork, it's that moment where we say, hey, can I tell your picture? Can we tell your story? We want to help more animals get back home. Everybody should have the liberty to do that, not just the PIO or the marketing folks, because we miss so many great stories. And people love happy endings, love them.
Yeah, and I think those are the stories too that have flipped some of us, right? I mean, with our own bias, like I know that's true for a lot of my colleagues. So I don't know, how could we start something like that? Kelly, do you have thoughts about how we could start gathering stories?
Really good question. I'll think about it, because I feel like it would be really good, and for a couple of reasons, but also just to teach everybody, here are all the different ways, of doing it.
Or maybe we can start having prizes. They don't have to be big prizes, but we start paying attention to the organizations that are really marketing those happy endings. And I don't know, silly as it sounds, do a raffle for the top 3 stories of the month. People like incentives.
That's a great idea.
I think as Rory, you said, like, how do we flip the script, or Gina, like it makes me cringe so much when I hear our sort of group use the words like dumped and abandoned. It makes me crazy. And I always say, like, unless you were the person who like saw some car speed up and throw a carrier out of it and drive away, we have no idea. And it just perpetuates. Like I think people use those words because they think it makes a good story. Like it makes a more sympathetic story to the animal. for some perceptions, but if what we're trying to build is more compassion for owners, that just doesn't serve anyone in the end. And it drives me crazy.
Drives me crazy too. I also hate the one where they're afraid of men. They must have been beaten by men, that whole thing. Yeah, we write our own scripts. And so I guess as leaders in the industry, we have to reshape the story. We need to start retelling it in a way, model the behavior that we want people to follow. And I don't know about some of you. I think somebody mentioned about volunteers. We were fortunate in Sacramento. I think our volunteers were very into pet reunification, but that's not true everywhere.
Gina, there's a question in the chat about how do you respond to Facebook pages where people badmouth owners? I think that's a really good question. And maybe if you want to tie that into what the Lost and Found Haas working group is working on currently with Facebook pages.
Oh, okay. Yeah. I think there's two sides to every story, and the truth runs down the middle in a crooked little line. And we shouldn't be playing into, the public diminishing a pet owner because of, some make-believe story. I just, what did we used to do, Bobby? We would say, we choose to believe that most people are good. Bad things happen to good people, bad things happen to good animals. Try not to argue, but state your belief and let it go and leave it there. One of the cool things that the working group, the Lost and Found working group is doing right now is having all of our, is it tier 1 and 2, Bobby, or is it just tier 1? Both.
Both, yeah.
Yeah, the tier 1 and tier 2 shelters are submitting or compiling lists of all the private Lost and Found Facebook pages in their respective communities. Some have as many, 20 in one community. You've all seen them, really well-intentioned private citizens trying to reunite pets, which is awesome. But what we're going to be doing is reaching out to the admins of all of those pages, trying to create a single kind of a resource Facebook page for all of the Lost and Found admins as a place to go, get new ideas. I think one of the biggest things that will come out of it is developing better relationships with those Lost and Found private persons, because they can be so instrumental in helping with reunification, but it takes, we're going to have to extend our hand. I think it'll be really interesting to see how that part of the project turns out.
Yeah, speaking of sort of the cultivating relationships, Leslie is actually a big part of what the conversations are going to look like with those shelters and how we're going to engage them. Leslie, do you want to kind of share your strategy about that?
Yeah, I think that, one of the things we talked about was those pages and those admins have a lot of ownership over what they're doing. And so the last thing we want to do is come in and act like we're trying to tell them how to do things. But we really do want to appeal to their knowledge of the community and have them, want to buy in and take ownership of working with us. I think, one of the things I thought of as you guys were talking about some of the people bad-mouthing owners on Facebook pages is all of our volunteers have to sign a code of conduct. And it does state very clearly how they will treat owners and finders and how they will treat each other. And so that really sets the tone for how we interact with people in our community. And so as we gather all these other Facebook groups together, that might be something we want to just maybe not have it be that strong, but just, those are the values that we want to share with them, that we want them to be sharing with the community.
Yeah, thank you. And ideally the goal is, so there's sort of two components to this project. One is how do we bring these subject experts and community leaders together to make sure that we're all speaking the same language? And two, what is the purpose? And ideally our goal is at the end of it, we hope that they will, anytime someone posts on their page, that they will recommend that that person also connect with their local animal services agency. And Gina is running another subgroup where they are sort of trying to create a model Lost and Found Facebook page. So where the language is very welcoming, you're checking all the boxes of all of the third-party organizations that you should be checking with that support Lost and Found. So that way, all the information for Lost and Found in our community is in one place. Once that happens, we are going to be tracking the RTO data for all of our tier 1 shelters for 6 months to see if creating a better relationship with these pages has helped get more pets home. Our goal is not to take over the world and do this everywhere because it's just not scalable. But ideally, we'll be able to share that data at future webinars or conferences to be able to recommend that local agencies create their own little ecosystems within their own communities. So we're really excited about that. We'll learn a lot from them, but also be able to help a lot of pets get home.
Bobby, I hate to correct you, but you said Facebook pages, it's websites. We're trying to get some uniformity in the tier 1 and tier 2 websites, lost and found websites.
Thank you. Absolutely. Yeah, the website, sorry.
And Chris asked a question about, what did you say? If you have resources for volunteer roles doing RTO work, if you have any position descriptions, scripts, training resources to share, if anybody does have those, if you could email them, you can email them to me and I can put them on our resource library and get them out to folks.
There are so many things volunteers can be doing and doing from home, particularly now. In Sacramento, the Nextdoor post, every single dog that comes in as a lost animal is posted every day by a volunteer. They do it all remotely. They have volunteers that scour Craigslist for reports of lost animals and found animals and try and cross-check. I know it's not the best use of technology, but sometimes it's the best way. Leslie, you know that. You use a lot of volunteers with that personal touch. Technology can't do everything for us, but I really do think volunteers have a purpose. I mean, even if you still have binders in the lobby, someone should be looking at them, and that's a great job for volunteers.
And posting on Craigslist, right? I don't know if you said that, but I know there's some shelters that are utilizing volunteers to post on Craigslist too. You don't need to be in the neighborhood, which is what's cool about that versus Nextdoor.
Yeah, it's amazing. And you can just create an easy script. So it's really consistent and it's on there all the time. And another unintended benefit of that is that the shelters are on the minds of people that are on Craigslist. That's what we saw Nextdoor do for us. Subliminally, we really kind of entered the living rooms of Sacramentans every single day. It was amazing. So, and it's free. Free is good. Bobby, how are we doing with time? We're down to 3 minutes left.
Yeah, time always flies. Kelly, did you want to close us out? I know that we're still going to be chatting a bit more about RTO next week, but anything you wanted to say in closing?
No, this has been really, really exciting and a really good conversation. So thank you, Gina and Cheyenne and Leslie and everybody who's spoken. Really appreciate it. And next week we will be talking with Tracy Moore from Chico Animal Services, and we'll have a couple other guests as well.
Yeah, and we'll try to come back next week with some of these scripts and SOPs that everyone's requesting. We'll make sure that you guys can all have access to them next week.
And my challenge to all of you is go back to your teams and say, what should we be calling RTO? What could it be instead?
All right, well, happy Wednesday, everyone. Hope everyone has a wonderful, safe day, and we will catch you all next week, hopefully.
Bye, thank you.
Bye, everybody.
Bye, thank
Thanks
you.
very much.
Thanks, Gina.